Welcome back to the Tough Cover Radio Show. I am your host, as always, Mark Henry Jr. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _ On the other side, on the ones and twos, we've got my man Sean Barnard, my co-host. You can follow him at Sean _ Barnard1. You just heard me and Joe Tanzi going over some of the college football playoff scenarios based around all the games for college football Saturday. Obviously, you have Arizona State, Iowa State winning in. SMU, Clemson winning in for both teams, and maybe you'll still get in if you're SMU, as we discussed. And then you have the two big dogs. You have Oregon, Penn State, and Georgia, Texas, which is almost like a parlay. You look at it like that's gonna the 1 and 2 seed will be determined by whatever the parlay of winners is in those two games. So I almost feel like you have to look at them as a pair there. But let's turn the page. Let's move. Actually, before we turn the page, I want to turn it over to Sean Barnard. This is not what we expected to start out with, but is there any takes about this whole college football playoff, the 12 team, the ranking, Alabama, SMU, anything you want to get off your chest?
More flags, Mark Henry Jr. Biggest message for me. I want planting the flag everywhere moving forward. That's what I'm in on. But no, as far as kind of the rankings, the outlook from here, I will say straight up embarrassing from Ohio State last week. One of the most embarrassing losses that I can remember in my entire lifetime across all sports, to just get dog walked by that. But the team that continually gets the better of you when you're the far superior roster. So definitely the most shocking, outcome of the weekend here. I think things have mostly played themselves out. Like, it doesn't feel quite as controversial as I was kind of worried is going to be the case. Obviously, there's still plenty of games that are set to take place this week, and this will really decide things. But I'm not up in arms over anything the way that I kind of was worried things could play out the direction. So mostly I do think the college football landscape has sorted itself out.
And I'll ask you one question before we move on about SMU and Bama. Let's say they lose by 10. Let's say it's a pretty close game. They're competitive the whole time, and they lose by 10. But it's not a come down to the last play, win it at the gun, lose on a game-winning field goal or touchdown type play. Do you think SMU should still get in the tournament over Alabama, or do you think, I heard Sean Brace say it, and it's kind of stuck with me, you're SMU. This is your playoff game.
Yeah, there's a part of me that certainly feels that way. I think I lean towards them getting rewarded. I mean, 3 losses is 3 losses for Alabama. There's no way around that, including like the Vanderbilt loss. And as much as I love Diego Pavia, like that's
Oklahoma's
not one.
Even worse.
Yeah, also true. So like, I guess I lean towards SMU. If they put forth a good performance this week and look like a respectable football program, I think they end up in that college football playoff. I do think the standard for Alabama, like to play the other side of the coin there, the standard for Alabama should be higher than what they've played to this point. I'm still not certain Jalen Milroe can be a national champion quarterback. That's been far too up and down throughout the season. So I've been underwhelmed with what I've seen from the Crimson Tide. I think SMU has made the most of the moment, and I think if things play out, at least that they're in the ballpark of this game this week, they end up in the playoffs.
I think it comes down to the point differential. I think if it's a 1-possession game, comes down to the end, I think SMU will still get in with a loss. I think anything beyond that, we get Bama. And I kind of just don't have. I feel this way a lot about the bracket. When the bracket comes out for college basketball, for the tournament, you always have the Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander podcasts and the Mark Titus podcasts of the world crying for 65 and 66 or whoever got left out. Those couple teams on the bubble, and I always feel like once I get the bracket in my hand, those teams on the bubble exit my brain. I'm not thinking about this team shouldn't be in, this team should be in. I have a bracket. I have games to be excited about. And I feel kind of the same way about this. I see both sides, like SMU, 1 loss early in the year, happened to a BYU team that happens to be very good, had a 10-2 year. Obviously, Bama, 2 bad losses. Bama does have a really good win against Georgia that is like head and shoulders above anything that SMU accomplished this year. So I see both sides. I'm kind of not passionate about it. So I have a feeling whatever side gets screwed is going to be really loud about them getting screwed, and I'm going to fully heel turn against whatever side that is. That's kind of what I'm.
Where we live in,
I'm kind of expecting that because I do think like the pre-crying for SMU is annoying. It's like you have your chance. Like Clemson's not that good, so go beat Clemson if you're a playoff team. But we'll find all that out. And obviously, you just heard me and Tansy go over all that stuff in the first hour of the show on the Big Brain Show. So let's shift gears and let's head over to the National Football League. Let's talk a little NFL. And before we get to the week 14, I think. Yeah. Before we get to the week 14 preview, we had, for anyone who's listening on Saturday, we are recording this on Friday. So last night's game between the Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, one of the bigger Thursday night football games I'd say ever. Given the stakes given the point of the season that we're at when these two teams are facing off, I'd say it was at least one of the more anticipated Thursday night games ever. It was the most anticipated of the Prime Video era for that. But I have a little bit to get off my chest here about last night's game, kind of about the Eagles fan base.
Let it fly.
Way too many people were watching last night's game, rooting on their parlays and their props and their bets, their Laporta touchdowns, their Amon-Ra's, their Gibbs, their Montgomery, their whatever you want to say, their Tim Patrick to score 2+ touchdowns. Shout out Joe Tanzi. What a bet. But I think we've gotten a little bit removed from why we follow sports in the first place. Like, sports is supposed to be fun, and we're rooting for our favorite teams to accomplish their goals of that season. And this season with the Eagles, that goal is winning a goddamn Super Bowl. I don't even know if I'm able to say that on the air. Might have to bleep that out. But I meant to say gosh darn, and it just came out. That's the first time I've cursed on the show. But I just don't understand how people didn't realize how important last night's game was for the Eagles. If the Lions lose that game, the Eagles win on Sunday. The Eagles are in first place in the NFC, holding the tiebreaker, holding the keys, and controlling their own destiny to be the 1 seed in the NFC. But because Detroit won that game, they now have to lose 2 games instead of just 1. Green Bay was our one chance at them needing to lose just 1 game. Now we need them to lose 2, which probably has less than a 15% chance of happening. That's not even taking into consideration the Eagles finishing 4-0. In my opinion, rest of the Eagles season's over. Doesn't matter. The next 4 games do not matter. They're the 2 seed. They will be the 2 seed. They'll win the division. You know, it matters to the people who care about Saquon's nonsense MVP case, but it's outside of that. They can't get the 1 seed now. It's over. Last night was your chance. And seeing everybody in the group chat rooting on the Lions, talking about how much they love Dan Campbell, talking about how much they love Ben Johnson, drove me insane. I can't lie. I was raging at the group chat. Didn't even text in it until this morning. But what's the point of any of this? What's the point of any of this if we're betting against our rooting interest? We're betting against the things that would have a great impact. And of course, the rebuttal is, well, I don't care where we play Detroit. We could win either way. We could go on the road. The Hardo response that you get in the group chat. Guess what? Jared Goff is about 60% as good when he's playing outside as when he's playing inside. Can the Eagles win in Detroit? Absolutely. My rebuttal to that is I don't think Detroit can win in Philadelphia.
Right.
So I think last night was a massive moment in the NFC, a massive moment for the Eagles, and the biggest non-Eagles result we will get all season long. But, you know, I'm glad some people cash their parlays. I just think, and this is a whole other thing, parlay culture's out of control. We're out of, I don't care about your plus 8 billion parlay when it comes one leg short. When you have over 2.5 tackles and assisted tackles in your parlay, hold it. I don't need to see it. I'm good. And then on the other end of things, the people who tweet out the lottery ticket parlays that win, how about you tweet out the 25 that you placed that day that didn't come close, didn't sniff coming close. And that's, I'm starting to get a little pessimistic about it. And maybe it's because, and I said it in the group chat when we were arguing about it, maybe I'm able to look at that because I'm not much of a props guy. So I'm able to take a big game last night that has a big impact on the Eagles season and root for the Green Bay Packers. And by the way, I fully believed that the Packers could win that game. I fully believed they were going to cover that game, and they did cover that game. So I cashed a bet while rooting on my rooting interests. You won't catch me on this show giving out picks against the Eagles. You won't catch me on this show suggesting player props against the Eagles. You won't catch me on the show suggesting DFS guys against the Eagles, because I don't think that's the point of any of this. I really don't.
Yeah. So to start off with kind of the bigger picture conversation, I don't think there's an argument against the fact that like we've been watered down as sports fans with all the different areas of getting involved, the betting angles, the fantasy football implications, all these type of things make you view sports differently. There's no doubt about it. And I do think that there is not the same like dying loyalty that you kind of hope for in a fan base. And for what it's worth, Philadelphia has been excellent at throughout all the years here. I personally feel those frustrations, particularly in the Sixers world, where it is the constant like pessimistic outlook. And look, if you want to say this team is not going to win the championship, you're going to be right 29 out of 30 times or 31 out of 32 times, depending on the league there. You're going to nail it on that one. So there's for sure like this, I guess, lack of like undying belief that I think we will all kind of wish was the case there. Now to talk a little bit more directly about this specific case with this Eagles team, the Lions situation, I guess I personally look at it. I absolutely hear you on the implications. The Jared Goff situation is a real deal factor. You're 100% right about this. I think this Lions team is more flawed than I think a lot of people are making it out to believe. They're a very good football team. There's no doubt about that. But from the Eagles' perspective, I do view this entirely as it's on them internally to be ready to play wherever and whenever that is. Now, do I wish they lost that game last night? Absolutely. I wish the Packers won that game. I wish that it did create an easier pathway to them getting the 1 seed. But I think the reality is in my mind that I always feel it's a little bit of a loser's mindset to be looking at matchups or looking about situations. Just control what you can control, win your games. And that's exactly what the Eagles are doing. So I'm feeling like this Eagles team is peaking at the right time. And if that means we have to go into Detroit to play them at their field, it is what it is kind of how I view that.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against that. I'm saying everybody should have been like the focus should have been the Green Bay Packers winning last night, not your Jahmyr Gibbs parlay or your David Montgomery parlay or your Tucker Kraft or your Sam Laporta. And you know, and maybe I'm a fraud for saying all that. I know Beef and Sean Brace and Luke Arcaney all think I am, but that's what I think. Like you won't catch. I think far too many people do this and we think we have to be this like journalistic integrity thing where it's like, oh, I will never be a homer, I will never be biased, to the point where I think John Jansen actively roots against the Eagles so he can tweet negative things about Jalen Hurts and so he can whatever, that's a whole other topic. But I really I do think that you nailed it with kind of the betting kind of killing a lot of the loyalty and the diehard stuff of sports fandom. And I don't know if there's anything like I love gambling. I bet on the Commanders a couple weeks ago when we were in a division race, but I just think that sometimes it's good to take a step back. And I think that's a lot of what I'm doing this weekend. Like this weekend, I'm kind of focusing on Notre Dame. I'm focusing on my fantasy teams that are trying to fight to get into playoff games. And I'm focusing on whatever helps the Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good approach. I do think it's kind of sad that that is the state of sports. It is what it is with that situation. We obviously, though, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube for where we're at on kind of how, I guess, how many options there are for viewing sports and being involved in all those type of things. So this is the world that we all created here. I can't be mad about it, but it is kind of sad when I take the longer scope of like, I don't think there is as much fandom as used to be the case or this dying loyalty to your teams. And I mean, that's not the only reason for that. I would point to social media as players becoming people more of a, I guess, a favorite player motivates you more than a team. I think that's more common than ever before. So there's a ton of reasons why that is the case. The reality is sports are still sports, man. They're awesome. And I'm going to enjoy them in every single way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I'm glad I was able to vent a little bit. I'm sure, you know, we'll see if anybody of the people I called out heard it. But I said exactly what I said in the group chat. And I just don't understand how people I think that there's still a little bit of the whole Lions thing. People look at the Lions as this cute, likable team that they've won a lot of money gambling on over the last 2 years, and not the team that stands in the Eagles' way to go win the Super Bowl. And
by the way,
I really do think that's a problem.
If Nick Sirianni made that call to go for that 4th down last night, imagine the reaction here.
John Jansen would have wanted him dead, but John Jansen instead tweets about how much he loves Dan Campbell 7 times throughout the night. And good on Dan Campbell for, you know, he made the call at the end and they won. He also made the same call an hour before and it didn't hit. You know, they went for it on 4th and 1 on the 30. It allowed Green Bay to score a touchdown right away. So that could have been the reason they lost the game, but because they won the game, you look at it's just people play results far too often with that. Dan Campbell's a good coach. I think
for sure
the story with the Lions is not Dan Campbell. The story with the Lions is how good the Lions are, and Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn being two of the best coordinators in the sport. Dan Campbell's, he's doing a good job. You can't point and say he's not. They're 12-1. I think that it's smart to be aggressive instead of conservative. But, if he lost a couple games, even if he did just as good of a job, we'd be killing him because of the decisions if they didn't work. So the way we cover fourth down decisions and all that stuff is so stupid, in my opinion. And I've been very clear, like, I have specific situations that I think you should go for it in. If you're within the 5 and it's 4th and goal, you go for it. If it's you're up 7 and you can kick an extra point to go up 8, or you go for 2 to go up 9, I go for 2 to make it a 2-possession game. There's these little strategic points that I care about, but so many people just play whatever the result is. Let's move on and let's talk about some of the Week 14 games, and let's start with the Eagles and the Panthers. We have Eagles-Panthers 12.5-point favorite here, maybe 13 depending on when you're looking here. But 13 I'm seeing now. I wrote it down as 12.5, but 13 now. Big number. I hate laying big numbers, especially in the NFL. But what I did do on a no free ads for the gambling app, but I got Jalen Hurts and Eagles money line. Jalen Hurts touchdown, Eagles money line -120, where that's -145, -150 on some books. I was able to find a book, no free ads, that you could parlay that. Go check out the Twitter for that. And that's what I'm going with. Jalen Hurts touchdowns at -163 to -185, depending on what book you're looking at. And I still want to bet it. I still think he scores. It's just a statistical thing where, he's more likely than not going to score a touchdown. And obviously the Eagles being a 13-point favorite, I'm extremely confident they win the game. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. And I won't lie, I do think the number feels a little bit steep to me. I get the Carolina Panthers have been about as bad as it comes. I wouldn't say that, because there's obviously other teams around the league that I think have less of a pulse than them. But I think Bryce Young is playing some good football, that these are important games for him that he's not taking for granted. I don't think that the Eagles are going to be in danger of losing this game by any means, but it would not shock me whatsoever if there is some sort of backdoor cover, or that late in the game, Bryce Young's able to throw a touchdown in that kind of interrupts the spread and it ends like a 10-point victory, something like that. So the 12.5 for 13 does scare me a bit there. I think it's very smart the way you went about the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown and money line. That probably is the way to go. But I will say my favorite prop for this specific game, Saquon Barkley over 111.5 rushing yards. Super, super high number. I think that's the highest I can remember ever seeing a rushing prop there. But Carolina's rush defense is brutal. If there is any motivation from Saquon Barkley to actually chase this record, we're going to find out this week. I think that's what ends up happening. I think he gets 2 long rushing touchdowns where he's able to break free, flirt with 200 yards on the day, and I think he pretty comfortably clears the 111.5. So he obviously gets the ball a ton. This is a situation where the Eagles are still more than comfortable using him at this point in the season. So I think he lays it on pretty thick and is in range of breaking that record after this week's game.
Yeah, no, it'll be really fun in Week 18 when we have the 2 seed locked up and we go out and play Saquon in the offensive line, and an offensive lineman breaks an ankle because of a meaningless record.
Don't put it out there.
It's what's going to happen.
Don't put it out there.
They are going to get to a Week 18 where Saquon needs yards to break the record. It is going to be an obvious sit spot, and the entire fan base is going to riot because Saquon Barkley has become Paul Bunyan in the way that everything he does is mythical. And we need him to be the MVP, which is such a ridiculous conversation. Guess what? Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. Last year, the teams that they joined at this point of the year had 33 wins. How many do they have this year?
35.
35.
Yeah.
They have 2 more wins. The teams that they left have the exact same amount of wins as they had last year with those 3 players. It's almost like a running back is a product of the system that's around them. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. It's almost like it's been an accepted fact for a decade. Whatever. Saquon Barkley is the best PR team in the history of sports. Sean Brace is tweeting about his Olympic sprinting thing from high school where he gave someone a medal.
He is awesome. He is awesome.
Great. He's the best running back in the sport.
Right.
Yeah. We don't need to say more than that. We don't need to be talking about his high school, medals that he gave away and talking about like how great of a guy he is when he gives away, when he asks for the backup to get carries at the end of the whatever. I just think a little bit of the way Saquon's covered is unlike any athlete I've ever seen in the history of Philadelphia sports. And I think the way he's covered absolutely demeans Jalen Hurts. It demeans Howie Roseman. It demeans the entire roster because this team is not good because of a running back. This team has been good long before Saquon Barkley was an Eagle.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that for sure. The only thing what I think it is with Saquon, the situation is this dude is legitimately like a generational running back, like talent, like the athleticism, the combination of skills that he has, the freak athlete that he is. And he was just buried on a nothing organization for every year of his career up until this point. I think really what this push is and what it is, why he's in the limelight the way that he is he is now on a winning team. He's not responsible for that solely, but he has absolutely raised the ceiling of this team to a spot where it wasn't before. And we're seeing him get the shine because of that. So I get the frustrations. I certainly hear you on the demeaning to Jalen. And it's kind of still crazy to me the way Jalen gets talked about. And Howie Roseman, I mean, they're across the board an excellent football team in just about every single positional category. So get the credit there. But I think that's more of what it is he stepped out of the Giants. He stepped into a winning organization and kind of getting more love because of it.
Well, hey, take it from John Jansen. Saquon helps Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't help Saquon. I don't know why you would ever suggest that a running back who's third in rushing among quarterbacks who's on pace for like 600 or 700 rushing yards this year would help a running back. It's almost like a defense would have to maybe account for a quarterback who can run. I know that that's a crazy thought to John Jansen, who acted like I was gaslighting him on Twitter. Well, I'm fired up about arguments coming into today here, obviously. But I just think that the way that this MVP conversation is being covered is the proof I need that I've muted MVP from my timeline. I think that it's a meaningless conversation now. Used to be based on stats and merit. Now it's based on Twitter and narratives. And the fact that Josh Allen, Josh Allen is worlds more deserving to an MVP than Saquon Barkley. But Josh Allen's 15th in passing yards. It's almost like it, man, if there was a guy out there, I don't know if this exists, but if there was a guy who was second in passing yards, second in passing touchdowns, only had 3 interceptions, was leading a winning team, who was also leading the league in passer rating and QBR and air yards per attempt, while also being on pace to rush for about 900 yards from the quarterback position. Oh, wait, we do have that guy, and he's a 2-time MVP, and he's having the best year of his career, and he's 10-1 to win the award. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to see. The MVP award's broken. It's done. It's cooked. I don't want to hear about it the rest of the year, and all I'll hear about is the MVP, because Eagles fans are Saquon Barkley fans over Eagles fans at this point, if judging Twitter is the way I'm judging Twitter. I'm sorry for the rants, but
no, I like it. I will say, don't always take Twitter as the general consensus. I think that gets inflated quite a bit. Yeah, and the group chat too, for sure. I'm a Lamar guy as well. That I think he's playing very clearly the best football of his career. He's been straight up amazing this year, in my mind, the best season of his career. And already a 2-time MVP. The immediate pushback you'll get back on that one is the 8-5 record, and you can kind of have your opinion for how much you weigh that. But as far as like the why, that's kind of what I think the immediate pushback will be to that argument.
The Ravens have lost games by 2, 2, 3, 5, and 7. They've lost their 5 games by
half a foot against the Chiefs.
One of them's half of a foot. They've lost the 5 games by 22 points. Justin Tucker has missed 22 points of kicks in those 5 games.
Insane.
That's not Lamar Jackson's fault.
And by the way, to throw another in the mix here, if the Cincinnati Bengals have a winning record at this stage of the season, I guarantee Joe Burrow's get in these same exact conversations, and not his fault either.
Part of the weird thing with that is his numbers actually they probably wouldn't be as good if the defense wasn't as bad, because he's throwing so much from behind, and people don't want to hear that. I'm not taking away from what Burrow's doing.
Awesome.
For a long time, I did the whole Mahomes, Lamar, Allen as their own top 3. Burrow's in that. Burrow's 4, I think, pretty clearly now. So even though they're 4-8, I'm willing to give them a lot of credit for this year. But I do think the numbers would be worse if they were better. But yeah, to me, honestly, just fully honestly, and I get that I have a Lamar 18-1 ticket. Just running through the numbers, Lamar beat Josh Allen head to head. Lamar has 3,300 pass yards. Josh Allen has 600 less. Josh Allen has 9 less touchdowns, more interceptions, less rushing yards, a worse passer rating, a worse QBR, and lost to Lamar. So we're doing
Got a
head-to-head.
receiving touchdown.
He does have a receiving touchdown. That was awesome. That was awesome. Let's move on. And I hate, everyone thinks I hate Saquon Barkley. I'm an Eagles fan. I root every time he breaks the why am I struggling? The line of scrimmage and goes on a long run. I'm jumping up and down and running all over my apartment or wherever I'm at. And people who watch the Eagles game can tell you that with me on last Sunday at the bar we were watching at as the Gambler. But that doesn't mean
Uh-oh. And we got a little Mark dropout situation. So filling in for the time being as his wheels spin on this end. Had a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue leading up to things, so my guess is that is the case there. But to pick up a little bit, put a bow on kind of the Saquon MVP conversations, I do think that Mark is overly riled up with kind of the general Twitter consensus when that is not the public consensus. I'll say that. And we do have Mark joining back on this side of things now, so tapping right back in. I'll throw it back to you right where you pick up right where you left off there.
Yeah, I do want to move on. We have to get to the other games. We only got 15 minutes left to cover all the games. And I don't have a lot of bets this week, to be honest with you. I only have a couple that I like. And, it's a weird week, I think, on both football slates, whether it be for college football or NFL. I will mention the one. Let's talk about the one game, and it's a crappy game. Why are the Jags a 4-point dog at Tennessee? I know Mac Jones is in, Trevor Lawrence is out. Mac Jones was okay last week. They only lost to Houston by 3. He played okay down the stretch. Tennessee's terrible.
Yeah, Tennessee is terrible there. The Will Levis and Mac Jones combination here is going to be pretty electric to watch. I think we're in store for quite a few turnovers. I think it's going to be a messy football game. The over-under sitting at 40 here. I do lean towards the under on that side of things, but I don't think the Jaguars taking a chance on the money line is a bad swing here. That, to me, this is pretty much a straight-up crapshoot of a game. There's still the people down in Jacksonville have plenty to play for. It does feel like that they're cleaning house pretty much regardless of how the season wraps up, but you're still playing for future career opportunities. All these guys have something to prove, from players, coaches, to everything in between there. So I think Jacksonville's going to do their best to bring it. To me, I think it feels like an absolute crapshoot. Take the plus 140 on the money line and have some fun with it is kind of my outlook.
Yeah, I'm taking Jacksonville. I'm not confident in it. It's one of my like a 1-unit, 2-unit bet, but I'll be on Jacksonville. Next, I don't have a bet on any of the other 1:00 games. We'll mention them here. Minnesota, Atlanta. Obviously, Minnesota, big favorite. Kirk Cousins' revenge game. Kirk Cousins looks cooked right now. There were some outs last week that he couldn't drive the ball through to get it all the way there. It's pretty ugly stuff. So I think Minnesota wins the game. I wouldn't be laying points with Minnesota. I think they're a massive fraud who should have lost last week and got lucky. But they probably win the game.
Yeah, I like the plus 5.5 for that very reason. That I do think Minnesota is showing a little bit of the holes that they have, and I don't believe in them as a true contender there. The Kirk physical stuff, man, is concerning. Like the 3 interceptions last week, and all 3 of them were pretty bad. Like they weren't these like dumb luck ones where things go wrong. They were bad reads. They were him zeroed in and him physically not being able to deliver the ball where it needs to be. So I know Michael Penix is lingering over the shoulders. I'm curious if we see any action with Penix on the field. I feel like they don't have much to lose at this stage of the season. That'll make things even more interesting moving forward. But I'm, I guess, as least optimistic about the outlook of Kirk Cousins as I've been in like 10 years at this point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's go rapid fire on these other games. We have Vegas at Tampa Bay. I think Tampa's like a 7. I don't have the lines right in front of me anymore because of my technology issues going on here. But I think Tampa wins this game. I'm not laying a big number with Tampa after what I saw last week. Didn't like how their defense looked at all. Do I think Aiden O'Connell picks them apart? Probably not. Tampa may be a good money line to use, or maybe a good survivor pick to use, but I wouldn't be laying it.
Yeah, 6.5 the spread here. I'm pretty out on Tampa from the outlook. I liked them early on in the season, but injuries have caught up, and it just feels like the team's fading a little bit there. I do lean towards the plus 6.5 in favor of the Raiders here. They've looked a little better of late, but this is still kind of a crapshoot of a game to me. So lean the plus 6.5, but I do think Tampa Bay gets the win.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. What's the line on that one? I think it's 6.5.
Yep, 6.5 as well. Minus 270 on the money line.
Yeah, normally I would look at Cleveland because I do think Pittsburgh lets up in these kind of spots, but they just lost to Cleveland. Home game, you have to think they come in fired up.
Jameis Winston, man, I'm still not over that Monday night of just the all-time Jameis Winston performances. He's going to make it electric. He's going to make it entertaining. but the holes are still there. I think the turnover issues show face, and that kind of buries them there. Pittsburgh is a good team, man. I'm buying into what they're selling there. I think they cover the -6.5, and I think that shakeup that they already had by Cleveland is going to be fresh on their mind. So yeah, I'll lay the points with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't. The Pittsburgh thing is so weird.
I'm in.
I still don't think they can win a Super Bowl. So
No, yeah,
that's kind of where I think I've probably not given them enough credit, but I still don't think that they can win a Super Bowl. So it's a weird thing. And then with Cleveland, I didn't watch the Monday night games. Sometimes when you're married, you've gotta devote nights to the wife.
Christmas movie. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you think you're safe skipping Cleveland, Denver, especially when you don't have a bet on the game, and then it turns out to be, the Jameis 497-yard game. It's
Incredible.
awesome. I love Jameis, but
And shout out to the post game. I'm praying to the Lord for the Lord to relieve me of pick sixes.
deliver me from pick
There it
six.
is.
Unbelievable quote. He's the best. The New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. By the way, Jameis should absolutely be a starter next year. It's a joke. Some of these bottom five quarterbacks who get a shot over Jameis. He should absolutely start some.
You'll at least have fun, man. It'll be watchable, you know.
And I always say it, but the last time he played like 6 or 7 games at the start of a year with Sean Payton before he got hurt the one year, Sean Payton got really good football out of Jameis. It was only like 3 or 4 years ago now. But the last game of the 1 o'clock, the New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints. I do not want to see a second of this game. I
No.
don't want to see Red Zone show this game. I don't want to be at a bar playing this game on one of the TVs. Don't tell me anything that happens. I never want to find out anything that happens in this game.
Yeah, drop an under 41 bet and stay away from this game entirely is basically my advice here. It's going to be ugly football, not worth watching whatsoever.
I totally agree. The late afternoon slate, you have a rematch of a couple weeks ago, Seattle at Arizona. I want to bet Arizona. I believe in Arizona, but I'm staying away. This is kind of like I think there's some value on the Seahawks plus 170 to win now, just considering the fact you have a win on Arizona. You're up a game on the Rams, and I think we all think San Fran's cooked.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think you have Seattle at 7-5, San Fran's 2 behind them. You're a win ahead of Arizona, who you beat. You're a win ahead of the Rams, who I don't think are very good. So I do think plus 170 might be worth a look for Seattle. But I also think Arizona could win this game and Seattle still win the division. They would be tied. Seattle would still have the tiebreaker. Like that's kind of why. Like I'm struggling really badly because I kind of think Arizona wins this game. Kind of want to bet Arizona. Also, kind of want to bet that division number. Probably going to end up betting neither, I guess. Like I can't figure out what to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with saying I was ready to declare Seattle dead a couple weeks ago, and they've now won 3 straight,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
seeing a little bit of life again, that this team looks like they're back in the mix for sure. This divisional race is probably the most interesting across all of football to me. I do still kind of feel that Arizona's the better football team, and them being at home like gives them the clean slate here. Their defense has kind of faded in recent weeks, and their offense performs way better at home, which is something to note heading into this one. But ultimately here, like, Seattle kind of has that look a little bit more than I thought they were going to be able to. So this is one I'll stay completely away from. Probably the game I'm most interested in, but don't have a passionate play on either side.
if I gave you over under a half of a team, so just one team is the over, uh, do the NFC West or NFC South winners win a game in the playoffs?
I would say yes to that.
I think I lean no.
Okay.
I think we're going to get Minnesota and Green Bay beating those teams. I don't even think Minnesota's that good, though. So
No.
Minnesota could easily lose to one of those teams. I do think Green Bay's absolutely going to beat any of those teams: Arizona, Seattle, Atlanta, Tampa. But Minnesota, I guess, is the question mark. A game that the only games of the week that I have a real take on: the Rams at Buffalo. I love Buffalo here, especially in LA. I actually kind of like it better that it's in LA because if it was in Buffalo, they'd be 7, 8, 9 point favorites. And with it being in LA, you get a little bit of a discount, but that stadium is going to be 60-70% Bills fans. It's going to be a lot of Bills fans making the trip out to Hollywood to see their team in SoFi. So I like the Bills laying the number. And usually I don't have the number right in front of me. When Josh Allen wins games, he generally wins them by a lot of points. It's kind of like a Buffalo Bills trope over the Josh Allen era. So I don't have a problem laying the points, but I did decide early in the week I liked the Chiefs -3.5 at the Chargers on Sunday night. I decided to parlay these money lines together. Bills money line, Chiefs money line. I think you can get like plus 175 ish
Wow.
if you parlay those money lines together. That's what I'm going for. So I will be betting the Bills, but my main bet here will be Bills Chiefs money line. Both teams trying to keep pace for that 1 seed.
Yeah, like that there. I am all over Buffalo for this one. I think the -3.5 is an awesome spread to pay there. I
So
have a
it's
stat
back down to 3.5.
3.5, correct.
It
Yes.
opened at 3.5, got up to like 5.
Wow.
And I didn't know that it went back down. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on DraftKings as of now. I also got a stat for you, Mark Henry Jr. So the Bills rank second in percentage of drives scoring the football. What percentage would you guess that is?
What is it?
49.2%.
Yeah.
Pretty good, pretty impressive stuff there, and their defense kind of playing better too. So I kind of think the Rams had a little bit of a vibe of maybe they still got some life in them. I think unfortunately Matt Stafford's fading. There's not enough talent kind of surrounding him there. I think the Bills roll house here.
I agree with you. Also, for anybody watching, you're getting to see a full Becky cam today. Becky was not being a good podcast pup, so she's punished by sitting on my lap the rest of the show. But Chicago at San Fran, the last game of the Sunday. Well, I guess before the Sunday night football game, the last game of the Sunday slate. I am talking myself in more and more to maybe this being my best bet of the week. This is a coach fired game, and no one's talking about it as that.
True.
Like, I feel like every time a coach gets fired, maybe it's because it happened on Thanksgiving, happened on Thursday. It's like 11 days. People kind of forget that they fired the coach.
And such a disastrous loss too. Like
Such a disaster, and a situation where we know the team hated the coach. Like,
yeah,
we had that report come out that Jalen Johnson and some of the other guys screamed at him in the locker room after, to the point where he just walked out. So I think that kind of shows his like leadership capabilities, I'd say.
yeah.
But I kind of love the Bears laying the points here, or giving the points here. I would lean money line as well. Where is this number at for you on DraftKings?
3.5 on the spread, plus 154 on the money line for Chicago.
Yeah, I am generally of the opinion that I don't take money lines unless it's over like 250, 200
Okay,
maybe.
wow.
So if you're giving me anything under 5.5 points and I like the underdog, I'm almost always just going to take the spread. Just a philosophy of mine. I don't even know if that's correct to do, but I'm taking the Bears. I think they bounce back with Thomas Brown, who seems to be kind of fired up for this. I think he's kind of like the perfect interim coach guy, to the point where I wonder if he did well down the stretch, would that be the annoying interim conversation where then they have to get considered? But probably not. Let's go with Chicago. I think San Fran's deader
Yeah.
than.
I do as well. I kind of think we get that glimpse of, okay, here's a Caleb Williams masterpiece just for this one game. This is what we have to launch off here. This is a great opportunity to do it. So I'm on your side of things. I truly can't believe how disastrous that loss was last week. Like, some of the worst clock management and team management that I've ever seen at the NBA or NFL level there. So rightfully that he was fired there. There's no way you can walk back and bring him back for another week there. The season has gone off the rails for the Bears several weeks ago, so this isn't a huge shock here. But I do think they might get a little bit of a jolt of life from Caleb Williams and find a win in this one.
Yeah, I agree. And Caleb, I was listening to McShay talk about Caleb, and he's like, I know that the narratives out there publicly are not like people aren't in love with this Caleb season. If you watch some of the good games, like the second half of that game last week, everyone's
Good.
focused on the ending. This, by the way, it's kind of bizarre. I just got this text as we're talking. Adam Schefter, Bears QB Caleb Williams is the NFLPA Community MVP. That's pretty crazy.
Wow.
It's not what I think would fit in the narrative about Caleb Williams that's out there. I think Caleb's handled all of this really well in the media, and he's apparently talked to the team and owned up for his part in the struggles when Shane Waldron was fired, and led a speech after Thomas Brown was introduced as the head coach to the team. So I actually think it's not really the behind the scenes stuff with Caleb that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about anything. I think Caleb's doing. I think it's clear that coaching staff was a joke, and it was a brutal situation. The O-line's not good enough. The glimpses of what you're seeing from Caleb are, pretty amazing stuff still.
Yeah, I'm more of a Caleb skeptic than you for sure, but I agree with you on the assessment that I've been overall impressed this year. I like the way that he's handled himself at the podium, kind of some of the glimpses of leadership that we do see. And I think the on-field play, for the most part, has been pretty solid based on what you would expect from him. It's clear there's a mess. They have a ton of issues that need to be addressed moving forward to next year. But my panic meter has not increased for Caleb Williams throughout the season by any means.
And they should almost definitely be 7-5 right now. Like
Yeah,
they lost 3 games on a Hail Mary on the
tough.
worst coaching you'll ever. I guess you can't give them the win for that Bears game because they would have tied it and went to overtime. So that's not necessarily fair to bring that up. But losing on a Hail Mary and losing on a blocked 31-yard field goal is pretty unbelievable stuff. And they've done those 3 losses in the span of the last like 25 days or something crazy. So man, brutal year to be a Bears fan. But I actually feel like Beef had the tweet at Big Cat the other day where
Yeah,
he was and Big Cat had the funny tweet back and I'm like, oh, how'd the Bears loss not make it? If you're a Bears fan, I actually think you're like happy about that game. Like
it
he was
needed to. It motivated change. Like,
yes.
yeah.
It got Eberflus fired. Caleb looked good for a good portion of it. Like you actually lose and it helps your draft pick. Like I actually think that was like a good outcome for Chicago. I already gave my take on KC, LA. I know you're in on KC as well.
Yeah, come on.
Anti
Patrick
Herbert,
Mahomes versus Justin
but
Herbert. What are we talking about here?
Sport Clips client Justin Herbert apparently, he's warming up to me. To those who don't know, I do work for Sport Clips as a day job for a marketing job. So Justin Herbert helping me get the word of Sport Clips out there. It's a game changer.
Yeah, that did hurt. That did make me view him a little bit more positively. That helped Herbert's case in my mind. I won't lie to you. So disappointed that we share barbers there is the way I'm gonna put that. But is what it is.
Last game of the week, Cincy at Dallas on Monday night. Yuck. What a terrible game. And they probably thought it was going to be so good when they booked it for this game. But we'll probably have a lot of fantasy interest for me with a couple big matchups. So I'm sure I'll be tuned in. I will not be betting this game. What I will be doing, I'm betting Jamar touchdown every week. I haven't checked the odds yet on Jamar, but let me turn it back over to you while I check it real fast.
Minus 165 on DraftKings for
Never
Jamar, I'm
mind.
seeing.
Never
So
mind then. So
a
that's
little
that.
steep.
They've officially priced that out. So I think he had 14 touchdowns on the year or something like that. So that makes sense. While you're there, what's Chase Brown's receiving prop before we head out of here?
He was for receiving yards, you're talking?
Yeah.
25.5 for Chase Brown.
Add it to my card. We bet that same number last week and we hammered it. That's gonna do it for the Tough Cover Radio Show. We gotta wrap it up here so we can get over to the Villanova pregame rather soon here on Fox Sports The Gambler. So for my co-host Sean Barnard, I'm Mark Henry Jr. Tough Cover Country. Let's ride.